Girl, they stole my resume. Have you ever heard of such betrayal in the job market? Like, did you even know that was a thing? Okay, me either. Listen, if you're new here, welcome back or welcome to my corporate chronicles, my crazy corporate chronicles. Okay, this is where I am peeling back the layers. I have worked in the corporate arena for 30 long years. Okay, I am now looking in hindsight outside of the cubicle, outside of the corner office, outside of the C suite. Okay, I am sharing stories with you about the long tenure of my career and the crazy things that have happened to me over my span of time, over the tenure of my career. Listen, you can't make this stuff up. Okay. And so, but out of it, I want you to get the lesson, the bigger lesson. And so I'll be sharing that with you towards the end. But first, I'm just going to tell you what the story is. Okay. We are going to just talk about the kinds of things that is going on in the boardroom when we're battling in the boardrooms as leaders, right? Also, just like what's really going down in the background of these proverbial glass ceilings and the high-rise buildings and all the fancy stuff around it, right? Like what's really going on? Let me just share with you. I'm going to make this short and sweet. And so here's the truth, right? Here's the thing. I don't even know how far back I can go, but I know it was several years ago when this first happened to me. Like this was the first time. I was much younger than I am now, right? But I would say at least when this first happened, I want to say it had to have been at least 15 to 20 years ago. Okay. And back then, this is long before we had, the online setup the way we do now. Now you go apply for a job, and I'm no longer in the workforce, but when you used to apply for a job back in the day, offline, right? You would hit the pavement, right? You would hit the ground running and you would pound the pavement, as we called it. And you would call people and you would look in the newspaper and the classified ads and under employment, right? You would look in the phone book, if any of you even know what that is, if you're watching this. Well, if you're my age, you're a Gen X. If you're tuned in and you're a Gen X, so you definitely know what that is. And you would make calls, you would stop by, you would go in and chat it up with somebody at the front desk, and you would hopefully get to speak with the hiring manager, right? And you would just simply go in and walk in and strike up a conversation and leave your resume and, ask if they were hiring. And oftentimes, and I did this as a leader myself, where I would, get somebody's resume and I'd say, well, right now, this was always common, right? Right now, we're not hiring, but if you like, I'd be happy to take your resume. We can leave it on file. And in the event something comes up that's a good match for you, we'll be sure to call you, because we're always going through our resumes, and we'll definitely give you a call if something comes up that's a good fit for you. So it was not a big deal. Now, this particular time, again, and I'm going to start back when, but then I'm going to work my way up, because I know it doesn't work like that now. Now it's a whole online thing, but I'm going to get there. So this, again, is the first time it happened to me. Okay. So at this time, I was still doing all the things that was traditional as far as how you found a job back then. And it wasn't very difficult to find a job, at least not that hadn't been my experience. I can usually get a job like that, no problem. All I got to do is land the interview. And once you let me in, girl, I'm going to sell myself on the job. You're going to hire me. You're going to hire me on the spot, or before I leave, leave there, or you're going to hire me as soon as I walk my foot in the door, right, of my house. Like it's going to be a message on my back then. Okay. I'm dating myself for real. It wasn't called voicemail. It was called, what did we call answering machine. Okay. You're going to leave me a message on the answer machine, and you're going to be telling me you're hiring me and when can I start? So when I decided for the first time in my early leadership part of my career to use a temporary agency. So back then, different than it is today, temporary agencies are well known, right? Employment agencies, same difference. So I wanted to use a temporary employment agency to help me find a job, to kind of speed up the process. People had been talking about it. It was all the rave, all the hype, and I'd never done it before. And I thought, well, shoot, if it's going to help me get a job faster, then yeah, why not? Why wouldn't I want to speed up the process? So for the first time, I'm not even going to say the name of this company, but it was a well-known company. I don't even know if they're around anymore today any longer. But I went in, showed up all poised and professional and polished and the whole nine, right? And I presented myself well. And then at that time, you got to go through a series of tests. Everything's done online now, similar process a little bit, but it's done online. But back then you would actually go into the office of the temporary agency. You'd give them, if you didn't have a resume, they'd help you create one. But I had a resume. In fact, I had several versions of it. Cover letters was a thing back then. And I went in, I presented myself with this information to, help me get the job, a job. And so they put all their information into a database. You're assigned to a particular recruiter, and that person is there for you to be able to, kind of match you up with the positions that you're best qualified for. They put you through the test. How fast can you type without any errors, or how many errors, will you make so that you can match the words per minute that was required by the job. And then whatever were the things that the job you needed to do to qualify for these positions. And so I went through that whole process. I went through all the testing, personality test, aptitude test, all the things. And then I was paired with or assigned to a recruiter. This was a woman of color, right? Which at that time, you didn't see many, at least based on my own personal experience, I hadn't seen many women of color in this kind of role. And so I was super excited at the fact that they were going to help me anyways, but I was super excited to be paired with a woman who looked just like me. And I thought, oh, she is for sure, she can relate. She's going to for sure help me out. Okay. So I was just like jumping for joy. So I get in there, we have a talk, and she's looking over my resume, and she's super impressed. And she's like, wow, did you do this? Did you create this resume? Is this is your experience? Like, wow, this is so much. You've done so much. And, we have so many things so many options for somebody like you. And, she's hyping me up, and I'm like, well, great. How long do you think it's going to take? And so she asked me, I left her with my resume. I went about my business. I continued to look for work. And she called me one day or emailed me. I can't remember which. And she said she'd like for me to provide her with at least 3 versions of it. Of my resume. And so I provided her with, but I asked the question, well, why do you need 3 versions? Like, isn't this good enough? Wouldn't this suffice? And she says, well, it's not uncommon, for different companies to prefer different versions, just depending on what they're looking for. And we'll help you change up the cover letter to appease to the particular, organization or the hiring department. Not a problem, but we do need the 3 different versions. So I didn't think much of it because I knew that was true. And so, okay, sure, not a problem. Sent it over. Didn't hear back from her. And it had to have been, I had been so busy looking for work, and, life continued, and, I was just living and doing and going and working and whatever. And then I realized, hey, it's been a little minute since I've heard from this woman. Let me go ahead and give her a call. So I called and didn't get an answer, left her a message on her answering machine. And then eventually I just went in. I'm like, you know what? They're not that far. I'm going to stop in. Well, I went in and I asked for this lady, and they said she didn't work there any longer. And I said, I was so taken aback. I was like, what do you mean she doesn't work here? She was working on helping me find work. She had told me she had a whole list of places that I would be a great match for. So why did she leave? And what happened? Is there someone else in her absence that's taken over? And then they looked in the computer. They was like, well, don't, it's okay. Let's look your information up. It's not a problem. We can pair you with somebody else. And this lady literally took I'm not going to go through, I don't have time to go through the entire rest of the story, in depth. Right. But I can just tell you that after they had done some research, because I want to get to some other examples, and I don't want to make this video terribly long, but they had done some digging around. They done some research, and they had to pull up my profile and all of that. This lady was just telling me lies about her helping me all along. What they ended up finding, this is what I'll say just to get to the punchline here, is that she apparently used their company computer, which is how they learned this to be true. And back then, honey, it didn't if you were nice enough to people and you approached them and they felt sorry for you for a certain situation that had happened under their watch, right? Without knowing, they are going to tell you things they probably shouldn't be saying, right? It's really not professional for them to really share what was done. But I think out of surprise of this happening, they realized that she had they saw my resumes in there, but she had created her own version for herself, for her own selfish gain. And she put her name and her address and her phone number and all of her, the demographics, and on each version of my resume. And those are the copies she used apparently to get herself another job. Wild, right? Now, obviously, when she shows up to the interview, she's got to deliver on that promise, right? She's got to say, if she's going to claim that she can do all these things, she's going to get found out if she can't deliver. But the audacity. Okay, that's the first time. I'm going to speed it up so I can get to some other quick examples. So another example, just coming more current, years past that date. The next example I can remember is I was at it was another employment agency. And this was probably, I want to say maybe 8 to 10 years ago. And the guy had already vetted me. He was like, I got the perfect match for you. You've got crazy skills. Like, you're so qualified. He made some calls to some people. He was like, you're in there. All you got to do is just show up. Let them, they just want to meet you face to face. They're so impressed by your resume. They want you in. They want you in right now. And I get there and I'm like, oh, wow, okay, this is going to be great. The pay was great, the benefits, all the things. So I showed up really so relaxed because he already told me I had the job. All I had to do was show up, and then, he was going to do whatever the contract deal was, write that up, do what the exchange that needed to be between them. All I needed to do is then say, when do I start? You know what I mean? And again, 2 Black women. I got in there, they greeted me, but it was very, how can I say, they were just very judgmental with their eyes. They, did this little shucking and jiving kind of thing. And then they brought me in, but you can just feel their eyes piercing within my soul, looking me up and down. I think, I'll tell you what I think after the fact. Okay. But so I get there. I'm going to tell you now. I think they wanted to see me in person because somebody can look good on paper, right? And a resume can look very impressive. But then I think out of curiosity, they really wanted to know, this guy is talking me up. He's making it seem like, I walk on water. Who is this chick? And I guess they wanted to see if I talked a good game. Does my demeanor, do I articulate, and am I as educated as, and do I look the part, as what should match the resume? That was my feeling. Okay. And so I get there, and the whole time they're telling me all the reasons why I'm overqualified for this position. And yeah, you'd be better off in a leadership role, but in order to be in a leadership role, that means you would be overseeing us. And yeah, well, and I was like, so why am I here? Because I was told that I'm here because you all saw my resume, you reviewed it, you were impressed by my skills, you said I was a great match, and I'm just here to meet you and to find out when my start date is. So back then, anytime you bring in a resume, the resume etiquette, in case you don't know, what you should do is always have copies on hand. You never know if it's a panel interview, if you'll be meeting other people or whatever. It's just good to have a few copies on hand. And I did. I always had fresh copies, hot off the press. Well, I opened my little briefcase and I was, prepared to take notes and all of this. I always make it a 2-way interview. I'm interviewing them, they're interviewing me. And so they saw that I had other resumes. And before we got started, or I think before I left, actually, they had asked me if I could leave a couple copies with them. And I thought, well, you're literally looking at the resume right now while you're interviewing me. And you just said, I don't even, that I'm overqualified. What would I leave those here for? But you know how you don't want to make waves. Now, I don't mind no confrontation. Okay. I'm that chick. However, in this particular professional setting, I'm trying to keep things cordial and cool. And I said, well, I'm sure you can get additional copies if you needed them for some reason, which in my mind, I'm like, that would be weird because you just told me that, basically I don't got the job. So I left it with the one girl, I gave her a copy, and the other one said, yeah, if you don't mind leaving one with me too. And I was just like, what the hell? Because these copies were very, the ones that they had were sent over from the agency, and they were just, copies, Xerox copies or what have you. But these were like very nicely done, freshly made, like nice linen paper. And I am so sure that they wanted it again for their own selfish gain. They didn't say this, of course, but why else would it make sense that anyone would actually want to get a copy of my resume after you just told the guy that I got the job, and then I get there and now I don't got the job? Like, make that make sense. Okay, next one. There were so many times, I'm just gonna give you one more. Okay. I started the business already. This is in the early years. In the first few years of business, I was still in the workforce, weaning myself out, and I left the workforce, but I had to go back in at one point in time. And I guess to some degree, I left it, but I always was like a 1099 employee, right? Like I've always been an independent contractor. I've always had my foot in the door. I've always kept my clinical skills strong, right? My clinical knowledge by doing some sort of either seasonal work as a nurse or, virtual remote, work as a legal nurse consultant. I've always done something to keep my skills strong and my knowledge, of course, right? But also because I have an active license and I need to have so many CEUs, and, I like to stay within the realms of healthcare. So anywho, so I have always, to some degree, even with having this business, I have always worked in nursing, okay, in some capacity, be it educating, health and wellness coach, consultant, whatever. So at this time, I was looking for an independent contractor work as a legal nurse consultant. Actually, I decided, I said, I'm going to go old school, because new school sometimes is like, it takes too long. Everything's online. You can't get in touch with anybody. They either send you a rejection email or they don't respond at all. You can't get in touch with this. So I was just like, you know what? I'm going old school. I'm not going to pound the pavement, but I got the whole World Wide Web at my fingertips. I'm going to utilize that to my advantage. I'm going to go ahead and look for jobs or independent contract work as a legal nurse consultant or health and wellness coach or something like that. That's virtual, 100% remote, that I can work from home or work from anywhere. Location doesn't matter. And I simply want to make sure that I have some freedom and flexibility in what I'm doing, right? So I called around. I just literally, I would look through like Indeed, because this is a thing that I do know is true. And if you don't know this trick, this is the good trick. Like if you still are in the workforce right now, if you're still working in corporate America, what you may not know, if you're looking for work and you're wondering why, you're overqualified for a position, you put in your resume, you did the application, you've gone through the steps, right? Then the whole process. And then what happens after that is you may not hear back from the people. Well, what happens oftentimes is like Indeed, not necessarily these particular platforms, okay, but I'm just saying there are companies out there, I won't even name them, but what are they called? The job sites, right? Where they're collecting your information and they're like a third party that you can find job postings and you can apply through their platform or directly on the company's site. So I started to, because I work with a lot of recruiters, I have a large network of resources. I know a lot of people, 30 years is a long time. I know a lot of people, right? So, and I have an HR background. So when I work closely with HR and when I speak to my HR colleagues, they tell me, listen, this is the new thing. Like these companies, They will see that we have these postings on our website, or that we once upon a time did. That job may not exist now. Maybe it was a hiring freeze, maybe whatever is the reason, but they'll still have the jobs posted on their website just for you to put in your information. Now they've captured your information, and the job, you're never going to get called from anybody, because they're just collecting information for their database. You understand what I'm saying? So once I got wind of that, I was like, oh no, okay. So what we gonna do is I'm going to make sure that I look up the job, I see that they're hiring or that there's a posting, but to make sure it's real and valid and I confirm this, I'm going to actually go to the actual source. So I go to the actual company or the organization, and if the job is still posted, then I will apply. Okay. Now that's not always an option necessarily, but depending on the company, because some companies only use these other third-party platforms, and so it may not be an option. But I also decided to just pick up the phone and start calling people. I was like, okay, well, so what do you want to do? You said health and wellness coaching and legal nurse consulting. So why don't you just call some of the high-end companies out here, some of the people who could potentially use your services, and just ask the question. So that's what I did. And then I got up in touch with this one particular very well-known company in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm not even going to say who they are, but if I did, anybody who's from there would know. Okay. So I called, asked for the hiring manager, and she was so happy that I called. She was like, oh my God, this is so crazy. I mean, this is like such a coincidence, because you happen to call at a time where the attorney had just said to me, he can really use a legal nurse consultant. I said, well, let me be clear. I said, that's great news, but let me be clear. I'm not for the defendant, okay? I'm on the plaintiff side. So that's who I advocate for, and that's the work I do. And this would not be working for him or for your company or his company, this law firm. It would be me basically doing billable hours. This is contract work, right? So I'm consulting with you on the cases that he has. So once we cleared that up, she says, yes, could you please send over? No, first she didn't ask for my resume. We did some talking, and then she called me back. And I thought she was calling to maybe set up an interview or something, but she wanted my resume. And I said, well, I thought you were going to call me back after you check with the attorney to see if, in fact, he even was interested in talking to me. And I would prefer to talk to him first, because I have some very specific questions, because I do specialize in certain areas and I want to know exactly what he needs help with. Excuse me, what kind of cases, that sort of thing. Excuse me. And so she kept pressing me for my resume. Now, I got PTSD by now, right? Because of what had happened in the past. And so I said, I would much rather talk to him first. And then once I know for sure, and he confirms that he really wants to meet with me and he's really interested in hiring and he wants to move forward now, because I need work now, then I would be happy to give him my resume at that time, or give you my resume. She kept pressing me. And it was just something in my gut that kept saying, don't do it. But she was calling me. She was emailing me. Then I said, what is the point of giving him my information if you haven't even spoken to him yet to confirm? You said he was kind of exploring the idea, entertaining. He hadn't made up his mind. He wasn't really sure if he had it in the budget right now, or whatever was the part of the conversation. Why would you need my information, my resume? And so she says, well, it would just help me to present, show him your resume. Then once he sees it, I'm sure he'll be excited about bringing you on board, or at least having the conversation, and you guys can go from there. So my wife at the time, I told her the situation, and she says, I think you're just overreacting. I think you're being too cautious. You're being mistrusting. You should just send her your information. I mean, what is it going to hurt? I highly doubt, if she's working for this major law firm, she's probably making a, pretty penny herself. I mean, she's in a whole different type of position. What is she actually going to do with your resume? And she, said some things that she's a very analytical person. She's a very logical, common sense person. And I said, okay, just relax and just send my information over, right? So I decided to send my resume, even against my own advice, even against my gut feeling, even against the red flags. Big mistake. I sent it to her and then I didn't hear back from her. Now, I had a whole lot going on at that time. Okay. I'm running a full-time business. I'm growing my company. I have staff I'm overseeing. I have projects I'm launching. I'm out doing what other things, seasonal work. I think it was like around flu season. So I was probably doing clinics and biometric clinics and, flu clinics and that sort of thing. I was, whatever was life. I have a relationship. I got housing stuff going on, like, all the things, family issues. So time kind of got away from me and I was like, what is going on with these people that you give them your information? It's like they hurry you up just for you to wait. So I called. About a week had passed, maybe a few days. Then I said, okay, don't rush it. Maybe just relax. Obviously, it's a busy law firm, so the attorney probably can't stop everything he's doing. Maybe she hasn't gotten around to talking to him yet, what have you. So I let it go for a minute. But then by the end of the week, when I didn't hear anything, I was like, okay, no, I'm going to call. She wouldn't answer. She wouldn't return my calls. I emailed her. She wouldn't respond. So my wife says, well, just at least wait until next week. Give it the weekend. And then if by next week, then I would just call again. I said, well, you know what? If she doesn't respond by then, I'm just going to go up there because, it's not that far. So, so time had passed. And like I said, she hadn't responded to any of my messages, any of my emails, any of my voicemails. So I started to just get that feeling again, like, here we go again. Here we go again. I know it. But it's the weekend and now I can't get in touch with anybody, right? So I had to wait until the next week. But something inside of me was just like, something doesn't feel right. So I finally, over the weekend, I'm looking, I let the weekend go. We had, we did our thing. We went out, we had a great time. We had our time together, our quality time. And I didn't do anything that was work related. And so by Monday morning, I get up early and, do my morning ritual and then start my day. And I said, let me just go ahead. It's early in the morning. They're not open yet. It's Monday morning. Let me not call right away because I know how it is coming off of a weekend, a busy Monday. Let me give them some time to get in, settle in, get their coffee, their tea, whatever, do their water cooler talk, and then I'll call. But in the meantime, let me go ahead and keep looking for work. Lo and behold, you won't believe what I found. As I am looking on 3 different job sites, that's what they're called, I didn't just see they didn't just steal, this hiring manager didn't just steal my resume, okay? She literally used it to post the job description of what they were looking for in a legal nurse consultant, and she used my resume verbatim. Girl, I was like, literally for the public to see my resume listed as a job description for what this person that they were interested in hiring, the qualifications they would need to meet. She used verbatim my words. I was just shocked and shooketh, okay, and livid. And I said, I knew it. And my wife was like, I already know what she was like, what? But she kind of had a feeling because, I right away start going off. I was putting on clothes. I was getting ready to go down there. And she had to calm me down. Like, no, we're not doing that. So I got smart. I calmed my little nerves. And I decided to send her. First, I called when the office opened. I didn't actually even speak to her, but I asked if she still worked there because I wanted to reconfirm, okay, did she also use my information? But she couldn't have because she's not a legal nurse consultant. But she could have used my resume because I have a wealth of experience, a wealth of knowledge, and a lot of experience listed on there. But I confirmed she still worked there. They said they can transfer me to her. I said, I haven't been getting any return calls, but here's what I'd like to do. Can you tell me who what the attorney's address is? Because I want to just email her. I do have her email address, but can you just confirm it for me? I really didn't have it. They gave it to me. They gave me his address. I sent my resume directly to the attorney, who apparently didn't know anything about this. He didn't even know this was going on. I'm sure he was so puzzled. He probably was like, what in the world? I sent him a lengthy email, and I was very sarcastic in it, but I just pretty much said in so many words, it was long. I'm not going to go through all that in detail, but I read her rights. And I told him, I started off the conversation, well, I'm so happy to know that you were interested in hiring me. Since I hadn't heard back, I felt I essentially wanted to just reach out to you and properly introduce myself, and wondering, if you can make some time for me this week, or what your schedule looks like, what's your availability. In the meantime, though, I did see that you actually officially posted, or your hiring manager, I listed her name, posted the position on this job site. And seeing as though I am the perfect candidate because I, meet all of the qualifications, here's a copy of my resume so you can compare it against, the job description that's listed. I know that girl didn't know what to do. But I did call, and I followed up with he never responded, because he probably was trying to figure out between the two of them, what's going on. In the midst of all of this shenanigans, I contacted through email the job sites and used her email address, and they said, well, you can't just call and take this down. We'd have to have an email address to confirm that it's really. So I gave them her email address, and I said, yeah, we need to take these down from the sites. We decided that we're no longer looking for this particular position to fill. And I know she probably wondered, well, how the hell did the job come off, because I never called anybody. She probably was so confused when she got a confirmation email, because I said, can you please send me a confirmation email, knowing it would go to her, that you did complete this process for me and took that down this job posting. And so they did. And of course, I got the name and the confirmation number and stuff. And I said, and can you CC my assistant on it? That assistant was me. Okay, girl, listen, she don't know. They don't be knowing. They don't know who they messing with. Okay. But they gonna learn today, as I always say, in the words of Kevin Hart. So she learned that day. And I followed up because I didn't hear back. And I just told him, look, if you don't stop this, me and my attorney will be down to visit you and your attorney. And I really know you don't want the smoke. As big of a company as you are. And I start naming who my attorneys are. And I got the attorneys that are on my side are some big names, okay? And they win cases, and they are aggressive. And so nothing else became of that. But the nerve, right? The audacity, I had never known this to be a thing. And this happened to me so many times. It's countless times, but I don't have all day, and neither do you, right? So this brings me to the conclusion to say this is another one of my crazy corporate chronicles. Be sure to keep tuning in every single week as I bring you more entertainment. Okay. I can laugh about it now, but it wasn't so laughable then. Okay. Especially when you're looking for a job and you really need to maintain your livelihood. You need to take care of your household and contribute. You got people who's dependent on you. You got bills to pay. You got mortgage. What are we doing, people? Wow. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. All right. But I'm going to tune out while you tune in. Be sure to watch the next video that YouTube recommends. And as always, and until next time, I am wholeheartedly in this journey with you. Bye for now.